Hello, everybody. We're back again and we're recording. As you know, I'm Dan Winter here, fractalfield.com, fractalu.com. And again, I'm here with Dalia.ali. Dalia, how you doing?
I'm doing well. And how are you?
You've been having some pretty profound experiences, as I understand it. In fact, I think a lot of people were quite impressed with the last recording, like actually feeling embedding inside the body of Thoth and meeting the fella. Oh my God. And what did he look like? And what was his message? And what's the point? And what's the history? I mean, this is quite a big picture.
Yeah, it really is. It really is a big picture and it's complex. And I've been kind of weaving throughout the components of the message, uh, embodying and integrating a lot of the messages I received and a lot of the memories I have been receiving also within my body, within really my cellular memory. But also the totality of the message for humanity, really, which I'm here to deliver, and I'll be happy to talk more about it, towards the end of the episode.
Which is big. This is a big story, guys. We should do a little gentle review so we don't bowl them over here. The gentle review here a little is so Dalia is raised in Egypt. She's immersed in the Egyptian pantheon. It's like part of her family. And then she becomes very, very dedicated to the spiritual disciplines, has bliss experiences in Hawaii, and amazing, becomes a filmmaker. And that was all in the last show. And then specifically, Dalia had a very intense a kind of bliss experience in the Therapy plasma, in the plasma field, which is a trigger. We know it's a lucid dreaming trigger. Actually, Valerie was there helping her. And is sort of ascending into the plasma. And there she was on the ship, ?
Yeah. So I can talk about the spaceship experience because I don't think we got a chance to go into it with details.
I mean, if somebody's a little bit skeptical, this is where you can get really skeptical. But Dalia has been there. She's seen it. She's met them. I'm totally convinced. She described the scene where, as Thoth, she felt the death of who we know was one of Thoth's incarnations, Tutankhamun, and it has more detail on the death of Tutankhamun and has felt it than anybody in history. It's very incredible. But go ahead about the spaceship, please.
Okay, so in the spaceship experience that happened to me when I was in Hawaii a year ago in 2023. And it was a lucid experience. It was an implosion experience, but I found myself on the spaceship in a male body. And I was communicating and having a conversation with my father, who I perceived to be my father. At the time, I was in an aging body. So I looked older than my father. My father, who I perceived to be an ancient soul, which I believe was Enki, I perceived him as an ancient soul. I knew he was ancient, thousands years old. But his body was that of a 20-year-old body. And this is, like a metaphor for the being in an immortal body or being in a forever young body. And I perceived myself to be much younger than he is as his son, but my body was much older than his.
Mm-hmm. And you were being shown this for an important reason, like the history. First, you perceived that this was part of the genetic engineering laboratory?
That was on the spaceship. I wouldn't consider that to be part of in the lab. That was not in Enki's lab. That was on his spaceship, where he was in command of the spaceship. And I, as his son, I'm a team leader. I have a team of galactic space travelers, you can say. And I knew I was a team leader, but he was convincing me to undergo this implosion experience. And I was reluctant for a very, very long time. But eventually,
it was an immortality initiation, basically, right?
That's what it was. It was an immortality initiation so that I too can have a forever young body. And when I say I mean capital I, as in the body of Thoth, as in the higher self consciousness.
Yeah, let's bring that in carefully. So now she just said the body of Thoth. So you're saying you were or are the body of Thoth.
I'm connected to the consciousness of Thoth. Thoth is my higher self, is my guide. and through me, he can see and he can move on the earth. So I can embody his consciousness and his ka, which is the life essence.
Right.
And this has been part of my transfiguration process afterwards, but I'm just mentioning the spaceship experience as the catalyst that started what later will come the Therapy experience, which was actually the same dynamics, but on Earth instead of on the spaceship, kind of like a lower dimensional version of the same thing happening to my body as I'm connecting with we can call it a Kundalini awakening or a transfiguration. I really like the term transfiguration.
Which, from a plasma physics perspective, this is actually perceptible to me. It makes some sense, but of course, a lot of people will be quite skeptical here. But one of the places where I became very convinced that Dalia wasn't kidding was when she began describing reliving the most traumatic lifetimes of Thoth to help him process, for example, the death of Tutankhamun.
Yes. So later on, after I had my Therapy experience and experienced the Kundalini rising, I have been receiving memories pretty much every night or every other night in a very intensive energetic process in my own body. And one night in particular, in November, I remembered the death of Tutankhamun. Well, I had been remembering that one of my lives, so Thoth Tahuti is his name, Tahuti, has been showing me who I was in other lives, or rather who he was in other lives, in other incarnations. But because I am one of his incarnations, one of his embodiments, I can also view the other incarnations.
And those of us who have been studying this from Secret Places of the Lion are quite aware that the Thutmose name of the royal line of Egypt is also the name of the royal line of the Essenes, and how the line of David, as it was called, migrated from the royal family of Egypt, Aka Thoth, to later the royal family of the Essenes and Jesus, and that Issa and Jesus, also the trauma of that death, is part of the body of. And that's pretty intense. But maybe we should finish a bit more here. You actually perceived inside your body, even before this, the pains that you realized later was Tutankhamun, right?
Yes. So I've been carrying, let's just say, the pains in my body throughout my whole life, since I was a child. I have physical distortions that never really were explained to me, particularly with my right leg and around my eye. I did have a traumatic event when I was little. And that after I remembered the Tutankhamun memory of his death, I understood why I had these traumas in my childhood in this life. So I'm carrying the memory of Tutankhamun in my body, in my DNA. So it's undeniable for me, because these are not third eye memory recalls. These are not the stuff that you remember. Let's just say if you have a past life regression and you remember your past lives. This is very much it's a living memory.
You're in there. Inside
the body.
And part of this that resonated so strongly with me was when I was in the gold sarcophagus of Tutankhamun in Cairo, and I passed out and had all these, memories and intense stuff, and saw how he was made into a rainmaker with his blood and became a rainmaker. So I had this huge identity with, when I read Secret Places of the Lions and saw the Tutankhamun, Thoth, and Jesus connection as a direct bloodline connection. But obviously I was not committed enough to be there enough to actually help Thoth process the trauma. So then maybe you want to just tell that story. So if there's a historian out there interested in the actual story of how Tutankhamun died, ?
Yeah, I can say that the truth of my memory recalls, but I would like also to comment on what you said. And perhaps I'm not here to speak on your behalf, but perhaps you had a different life path and a different mission.
fragment of the soul memory is what I call
Yeah,
it.
fragment of the soul memory.
That's
Of
what I
course,
call it. Yeah.
because we are all connected, and if you are, you know, to a certain extent awakened to your soul consciousness, you will remember things, and they will come in flashes, and especially will be enhanced by the memory of the place. So that makes perfect sense. But I think the toll and the trauma and the hard work that I'm doing now is part of my life's mission, and this is why I'm here, in some sense, to collect plasma memories
Yeah, yeah.
and release that,
And
because they're trapped. These were trapped plasma.
right, exactly. Which is the physics of ghosts and the physics of soul.com, which we're about to talk about. It's all very relevant. So then if there's a skeptical historian out there who wants to check the way you saw Tutankhamun died, this nasty guy, who took over after him, used the poison how?
Yeah, so the death was through my right eye, which, you know, the ancient Egyptian, it's very sacred, the right eye, because it's the eye of Ra.
It's the eye of plasma projection also.
This is the eye by which, let's just say, the god can see through the pharaoh's eye and oversee everything. So the connection between the pharaoh as a human, part of the royal bloodline, the blue blood, and his connection to the unmanifested in this dimension, God in the higher dimension, is through the right eye. And this is precisely the eye that they murdered me through. And it was incredibly painful. I have faced a lot of traumas in my life. This is beyond traumatic. It's tragic, because the entire life of Tutankhamun was tragic and full of shame and disabilities. And he was crippled.
He was a mess.
I had to, yes, it was really, his physical body was weak. And I know there's a lot of, you know, theories about the disabilities as part of the, you know, in interbreeding, you know, in the ancient Egyptian families. But I would reckon to say there was, let's just say, malintent
Oh, huge.
in his birth. Let's just say that I believe that his mother was poisoned or given some herbs that actually created more disabilities for Tut, in an attempt for her to have a miscarriage. But she didn't have a miscarriage. She actually gave birth to him, but he was crippled.
But he was crippled. Yes, yes.
And yeah, so the memory of his death was very much soul shattering for me. Like, talk about soul fragmentation.
Yeah, there's a severe trauma fragments the soul memory of the lineage, as it were, and we're going to talk about that. But just for example, now, if some, you know, archaeologist wants to go check, you know, they speculate that Tutankhamun broke his leg trying to be a charioteer, and the infection got him. But check that right eye in the skeleton, guys.
That right eye. It actually, if you do look at the picture of the mummy of Tut, you will see around his eye a purple discoloration around his eye that I actually looked at in a book. I might be able to find the image and place it later.
So there could be evidence.
See a purple discoloration around his right eye. For me, it was undeniable. And I remembered, so before my death, throughout the 18 years, because he died around 18 or 19. So throughout my life into adulthood as the pharaoh, or as one who is being prepared to be a pharaoh, I was being given a blue lotus elixir that supposedly for pain reduction, because I had so many disabilities. But what it did is it kept me in a state of a trance, because they actually used the blue lotus at the time as a lucid dreaming herb.
Even the remote viewers, they put them in a near-death trance and they can remote view better. I mean, it's an old story. And
yes, but unfortunately, they used it with Thoth not for very good reasons, is to keep him, because Tahoot, when he showed me, first before showing me the death, he introduced me to the idea that Tut was one of his incarnations and a past life.
Yes.
And he showed me him with half eyes open, half eyes closed, like he was not really there.
In a trance, a forced trance.
It was a forced trance meant to keep him not in his decision-making abilities, not in his full mental power to make his actual decisions.
And this is so
And that was,
sorry.
yeah, no, please go ahead.
And so this was so traumatic for the Thoth lineage that this needs to be reprocessed now in order that I call this the reluctant Messiah, but actually the Thoth hero of our history to, quote, pull himself together. And so a fragment, a big part of that soul memory with the bravery of Dalia being able to process this. So hint here, guys, if you happen to be an archaeologist, that skull of Tutankhamun is available and that blue discoloration is there. Do a chemical analysis for that poison. You might find proof of what Dalia just said. Hello. But anyway, so let's go a little bit further into the impact this had on Thoth's ability to do his mission.
Yeah, so part of the curse of being an immortal God, if you want to call it God, I don't really think that God is the right terminology, but it's what they were known as.
The more pervasive the plasma embodiment, the larger the area over which you can be centripetal. And the crude term God isn't really very helpful here. But the unpacking of the aura to be centripetal, first locally and then interstellar, refers to a large, intelligent plasma being. But go ahead.
So part of being an immortal is the curse of having to remember everything, including the painful ones. So this is really the curse of immortality. And for him to, while he's on the spaceship and this higher dimension, he doesn't really have to deal with it because he doesn't really have to incarnate. As long as he doesn't reincarnate in a body, he's okay. But part of the immortality process, and even in the spaceship, and why my father was convincing me time and time again to undergo the immortality process of having a forever young body in a physical form, because the soul is eternal, but the body decays, and having a forever young body is a form of ascension for these higher beings as well. So for him to undertake this process meant he will have to relive all these memories.
Exactly.
And it meant also that he has to gather the fragmented plasma that was left here on this earth as part of his incarnations for him to be whole again.
Pieces of soul, literally.
Yes.
So if you want to get immortal, you got to pull together. You can't sing "Haven't Got Time for the Pain." That doesn't work. No.
Yeah, you can say that. And haven't got time for the pain, you can actually hear it as heaven got time for the pain, which is those in heaven, what we call heaven. They actually have got time for the pain because they're immortal in that way. And this is part of their evolution in this higher dimensional.
And the physics of pain we have taught for many years also works here, that pain is a name for the charge that bleeds when fractality compression is broken. So restored implosion, restored compression is the electrical opposite of pain, as we've been teaching for many years. It also fits this description. So then we're back to the Thoth mission and Tut. And do you want to say a little bit about your experience of Issa, Jesus, also here or not?
Yes. So it was a very intensive night for me. I had remembered the death of Tut. And I had also remembered the death of Issa, his incarnation as Issa. And the death of Issa, what I recalled was, it was a very quiet moment. I have to say it was full of grief, but it wasn't as tragic as the life of Tut. In the life of Tut, it was immensely traumatic. But the life of Issa was immensely sad. And his last moment, I heard someone calling my name, Issa, Issa, Issa. And that's how I knew that this is the life of Issa that I'm witnessing.
My hair just stood up.
Yeah, and I remembered seeing the gate of a city, white, a gate of a city. And it seemed like it was on top of a hill.
Calvary.
Because see the town was underneath.
So you saw the scene through his eyes.
I saw the scene through his eyes.
Yeah. And what does that tell the Bible thumpers now about the personality of what was accomplished by the life of Issa?
So before getting into what was accomplished, I could tell you the feeling that I got at the time. It was which also Ningisdira Thoth had. It was, and why he's the reluctant Messiah, or however you want to call him. The reluctance comes because he felt like he failed the humans, and he was leaving them behind. Specifically with Issa, he felt like he was very sorrowful to leave them behind and not be with them anymore as a guide or as his presence.
Oh, that's so powerful. But we lost your face for a moment. Maybe turn off your camera and then on again. See if we get your face back. Could you try that? I don't want to lose your important expression while you do this. I don't know how we lost.
Let me see. I think maybe it's the connection. Let me just plug into another connection.
Okay. It's funny because the view of your face we just got frozen with was your half-open trance eyes, which is rather transfixing. The irony is also intense here. But yeah, but to review what Dalia just said, that Thoth was agonized by the fact that he couldn't be here with us, his children, being counselor during this time, and the sadness. And I think Dalia is about to say more about the sadness of the mission in terms of what has happened today as a result of the Jesus story is still rather the opposite of a happily ever after. And here Dalia is coming back again. So actually, Dalia, we should tell people where you are.
Can you see me?
I can hear you. I can't see you yet. Try turning your video on and off or something. See if so. Dalia, you're on the Red Sea in Egypt right now. Is that right?
Yeah. So the internet maybe is not the best, but
oh dear. Yes.
let me see if I can try.
Maybe
I'll exit the meeting and come back in again. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Try to come back in. Okay. So then part of that story was that Dalia said that she perceived that the memory of Issa through the body of Thoth, who now those who have studied Out of Egypt and all these books about the fact that the Essene family was directly the Akhenaten Jesus royalty for sure. So to say that Thoth and Issa Jesus are the same lineage is not a surprise to the serious historians here. Nor is it a surprise to say that Tutankhamun incarnation, where the royal line of Egypt is named Thutmose. Anyway, so what Dalia is about to explain here is that she perceived the intense sadness, even grief of Issa Jesus, feeling in some way that he had failed. And that failure is specifically underwritten by watching the situation on the planet today. Now how to interpret that, there's 1,000 ways to see sadness there, but I mean, basically, if the Jesus story became the Christian and the Yahweh and Lil story became the Jewish story, and the state of that war, the remnants of the way, the Jesus intent was deified and then tragically turned into religion wars only, and the opposite of actual teaching the science, and I do mean the science of physicsofsoul.com, you can understand where Jesus, Issa would feel a little intimidated, discouraged, like, did we succeed? We're not sure yet. Oh dear, like humans, you need to get your show together to fix this. Dalia, how's it going over there? Are you coming in? I think we have a little interference from the powers that be. But just to say that the way we wanted to present the big picture tonight specifically is that the big message of Thoth, Ningishita, Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl, so many names, Ishka, too many names, Ningashita. The big picture of the mission there is actually the science of the way through a portal to immortality. Actually, and the slideshow that I prepared for tonight's lecture, which is about the Emerald Tablets and the Templars, actually both are directly from Thoth, again, echo that story, which is that the message of Thoth, the message of the Emerald Tablets, the message of the real message of the Templars, who all agree the Templar story is the Thoth story. Nothing more, nothing less. It is the Thoth story. And in both cases, it is the story of the attempt to teach a science of an empowering pure principle, which has absolutely nothing to do with traditional religions or personality worship or miracle worship. It is the opposite of that. It is the science of a self-empowering pure principle. Yes, it's full of love. And yes, because it's adult and grown up, does not require the poison of personality worship and miracle worship, which causes things like religion wars, which is our current mess on this planet. And I've said that way too many times. So let's hope that Dalia comes back in here. Oh, she's coming. Hurry up, Dalia. I need you. She's coming in, I hope. There. Okay. So maybe I'll start that slideshow in a minute. But Dalia, are you there? Good. I can hear you now. Is your camera going to work? No. 3, 2, 1. Okay, maybe I will pause. I'm going to pause the recording. So we had a little burp there. Being in Egypt, sometimes the network is a little, but Dalia is back, and this is great. So
yeah, sorry about that.
So Dalia suggested that the next piece of the puzzle she would like to explain more about has to do with why the people who say, well, we need Jesus to come back. Well, actually, now we know that that's actually Thoth. And the Thoth, which we now know is behind Apkallu, behind Quetzalcoatl, behind Viracocha, behind each of the group that saved each of the civilizations named Apkallu that Hancock talked. It's all Thoth, man. It's the same guy. So when Dalia says, look, our classic myth of the birth of the hero through the ages, the flight of the wild gander, however you want to name this hero, there's an issue about coming back, which is.
Yeah, I hope you can still see me and hear me. I hope the internet
Absolutely.
connection is stable enough now.
You're looking good.
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, the issue with embodiment, and I do want to mention a bit of part about the mythology of ʾAW-RE and his role in the mythology of Osiris and Iset, or Asur and Iset, which is Osiris and Isis, and the birth of Horus, which is Heru. So Heru then becomes the hero, becomes the embodied, let's just say the embodied galactic presence in a human body. And this is the physical manifestation of Issa through the technology of ṭAW-RE. So you will see that there is a connection between Heru, Horus, and Jesus, Issa. And you will see the symbolism of Isis as the mother of Horus, giving birth to Horus through is similar to the story of the Virgin Mary and Jesus, which is a virgin birth, or a virgin pregnancy, because the myth of Osiris is when he was fragmented into pieces by when he was betrayed by his brother Seth. They found Isis went all over Egypt to look for all of his fragmentations, the parts, which is really a metaphor for fragmentation of memory as well.
Exactly.
She collected all the pieces, put Osiris back together, and she found all the pieces except for his phallus. And Tahuti then gave her the secret word to reawaken Osiris from his dead state, as you know, before he became god of the underworld. And she put in the golden phallus, and this is how she conceived Horus, which is really similar to the virgin birth of Mary and Jesus. It comes from the same technology, which is that you can embed the soul, the galactic soul, of Tahuti, or of Ra, into a human body by ensoulment, not necessarily that it has to be from the phallus of Osiris. It doesn't have to be from the royal bloodline lineage, that you can actually ensoul someone from that bloodline through this technology of virgin birth. So it started with the mythology. So that's why you'll see with the mythology of Isis, Osiris, and Horus. So it's the triad also, which is really an important symbolism and mysticism in many of the religions. So it started in ancient Egypt and then became the story of Jesus and the Virgin Mary. So you'll see a lot of commonalities between Horus and Issa as well.
And virgin birth has been, talked about in terms of, well, this is when the Anunnaki made love to humans, and there's other metaphor where virgin birth means parthenogenesis, other metaphor where virgin birth means bliss caused the birth. And there's medical evidence that with enough Kundalini, you don't need a guy. And by the way, the Dagat and Palladian, that's a female, and there's a lot of virgin birth there too. But there's another parallel here, which I think is instructive, is that when Lawrence Gardner confirmed the early research, which said that everywhere you hear the word Tahuti, T-U-T, T-W-T, it was later changed to D-W-D, meaning literally the line of David. And Lawrence Gardner, who is an excellent historian, insists that everywhere you read line of David, and that's the bloodline of Jesus, and actually that means the line of Tahuti, actually the line of Thoth. And actually then that literally becomes the myth of the Grail bloodline. So you see this Tahuti Thoth guy really gets around. Okay, but you wanted to say more about the fractionation of memory, I think.
Yeah, the fragmentation of memory. So this is part of why he was reluctant, Tahuti, into another experience of embodiment, of another Horus experience, of coming in the flesh, of coming in a human body all this time. Because last 2 times it didn't really end that well.
Could be a bit of a pain, actually. You can't blame the poor guy for being reluctant.
Yeah, well, yeah. So specifically with Thoth, it was really painful. And that's why that was when the breakage in the royal bloodline of the Thutmose bloodline of the royal pharaohs in Egypt, after a period of abundance and prosperity, really from Amenhotep III and all of the Thutmoses in that line, they were all embodying that same being the living image of the god Thoth, which Tutankhamun really literally means is the living image of Tahuti, or of Thoth.
Yes.
So this is a technology that the Anunnaki developed over time, which is they were able to maintain royal, like the overseeing of the human affairs through an assigned pharaoh or king or ruler. Yeah. Chosen by the heaven or chosen by the gods, which is really the Anunnaki family. And they were able to maintain, the magnetic line management and the flow of the river and the flow of the waters to ensure prosperity and abundance and the continuation of human life. And then, of course, there was the practice of the Book of the Dead, which was really a practice of enlightenment and how to have like a proper death, really, and find your way back to the heart of the sun. Yeah, is essentially it's an enlightenment journey.
Yes, so profoundly.
So
beautifully put.
Yeah, please.
Well, just,
Mhm.
and to say this fits perfectly, Genesis of the Grail Kings by Lawrence Gardner saying, well, they massaged the royal lines of Europe for several thousand years like they were show dogs in order to what? And later, the slideshow that I've prepared, it's going to happen any minute now, is about the Templar repair of the agenda, the Templar agenda, the repair of the fabric of time, which is the maintenance of just the magnetic lines, the grid that Dalia just mentioned, and that the geometry of that grid is actually the bloodline memory. It's literally ancestor memory in the longitudinal array, and how to embed in that array is specifically what we're calling physicsofsoul.com. So you see how these things are going to fit together. But so should
Yeah.
we move toward this initiation in the blue hole yet, or should we do this more on the history of the Templars and Thoth, or what do you think?
You know, we could go really either way. I can meditate on this for a second
Let
and
me
see what really wants to come through.
maybe I'll just start those slides and then you see what you think here, okay? So basically, what I
That's
wanted
great.
what I wanted to emphasize here was that when I met Dalia, who said she's talking to Thoth every day, it was not the first time in my life I knew someone who was talking to Thoth every day, actually. And that guy was the hero of the Templar lineage. Let me see if I got this right slide here. That guy was William Buehler. Do I have the slide here? goldenmean.info/Buehler. Here it is. So William Buehler, who is the hero of the Templar history, very famous Templar agenda, and there are hundreds of these graphics of their work on the grids and the repair of the fabric of time by William Buehler, whom I knew for 25 years and did one of his many websites, goldenmean.info/Buehler, where you'll find hundreds and hundreds of these pictures of their work on the grid and the repair of the fabric of time. And they work daily with Temple, Doris, Simeon, and Maya. And their phone calls every day were with Thoth, actually. And so this a new history of Thoth is what we're calling this, that I recognized what Dalia was saying about what Thoth was up to from what I knew previously of his agenda, which I had learned through the Templars. So, for example, in the Gaia TV Templar Mysteries series, Tim Hogan, the Templar Grandmaster, and Scott Walter, who was a friend of Alex there, their conclusion, throughout the Templar origins, the teacher was always Thoth, same guy. And then recently, Billy Carson on Gaia TV came to the same conclusion I already had announced, which is the Apkallu 7, which Hancock says come out of the sea every time for a dozen different ancient apocalypse civilization recoveries. The same Apkallu 7 leader, Hermes Thoth, is the same guy saving every single civilization, whether you call them Thoth, Awanas, Quetzalcoatl, Viracocha. It's the same guy. This Thoth guy really seems to get around. So this was called the Veracana effect. We have an article on that in our Malta series, goldenmean.info/Malta. And the Hopi Kiva experience is relevant. But where I want to go with this next in this presentation is when JP, the secret space program military survivor with Michael Salla, reports in depth on meeting Thoth in stasis under Florida, he says it's the ant people. The new king of the ant people is Thoth. Now, I had a lot of I knew Morning Sky, and we did the ritual of the ant people. It was called Sipapu, the Sipapu experience, emergence from underground, when the ant people named Anunnaki, ant friend by the Hopi. So JP says the new adopted king of the ant people in the it's literally a stasis chamber. It's literally an ark under Florida. So what is Thoth doing? It's actually one of the avatars of Thoth doing in stasis under Florida. He's monitoring something. And I think what he's monitoring is right here. If you look at the plasma physics of what the world's leading clairvoyants saw, called Anu, as in the sun god or father god, sun god Anu. And the Anu was the 7 spins slip knot, 7 spins outside, 5 spins inside, which we now know means the 7 spins is the 7 spins of the tetracube, which is what the clairvoyants saw when they looked at the heart of the sun, and they saw the same thing when they looked at the heart of the human, and then they saw the same thing when they looked at the heart of hydrogen. And here are those pictures. And what they were seeing was the 7-spin 5-spin slip knot, which obviously is a 7-spin tetracube, as in the layers of heart muscle here, inside, and the 5 spins outside dodecaecosa, which is basically simple. It's a stack of platonics which initiates charge collapse, which is, by the way, how you make the atomic table, electrons or hadrons of the nucleus. It's the same. It's a platonic nest only. So they were seeing the slip knot at the center of the heart of the sun. Now, the living plasma, which is inhabited and navigable at the center of the sun, at the center of the moon, at the center of Nibiru, now navigated by Enki, if we believe Elena Denon, and I do about that. And now the intelligent plasma being inhabiting the heart of the earth, I say, which is steerable like a spaceship when the intelligent plasma is inhabited, and that's the intelligent plasma waveform that makes stars and planets and humans navigate. So anyway, we think this is another evidence of how Thoth is coming back. Now, Thoth is obviously the author of the Emerald Tablets, and my book paper on the Emerald Tablets here is my book number 2, Earth Heart. And I'm about to show you the part of Earth Heart where I narrated a new Emerald Tablet, according to Vincent Bridges. And this is also Thoth and the Bon Po. Notice that this swastika is actually the animation of the Holy Grail. We'll see later. The Tibetan alphabet is these waveforms. And unfortunately, I think we lost Dalia here. But what Dalia wanted to talk about was how these waveforms of the ancient alphabets, Arabic, cursive alphabets, actually became the letters of the parts of the body of these beings, actually, these plasma domain symmetry index, which are the origin of sacred alphabets. And most of you know my work on that in the goldenmean.info/DNA ring, where I derived the English, the Arabic, and Hebrew from the animation of the angles of the plasma torus on the slipknot donut. And we're not going to go through all of that right now. It's the Hebrew. goldenmean.info/DNA ring. So Hugh Newman concluded that the greatest significance of the pyramid dolmen energy field, remember, the Templar agenda, the Thoth agenda, is to maintain this array, this grid, which is ancestor memory and soul physics. And this longitudinal array, which you inhabit when you die, is also the physics of pyramidwirelesspower.com here and the physics of soul.com. So the obelisk array, for example, at Heliopolis is a design by Thoth to maintain a longitudinal array. And my partner in a lot of this work now, Tony Rodriguez, has shown that the specific limited distance between these pyramids and the nearby water is how they charge that water for fertility. And these obelisks were literally the longitudinal node of access to remote viewing. And the physics of how pyramids create that array, that implosion, when this Schumann phase conjugate pump wave implosive cascade triggers the pyramid piezoelectrically, it implodes and spits out a coherent longitudinal node into the longitudinal array and distributes global wireless power wirelessly, which is a coherent longitudinal array, which happens to be made of the same stuff as ancestor memory and the same stuff, which is the only physics of gravity, waves, and the same stuff, which is the only physics of where you go when you lucid dream. So just to finish the thought of this slideshow, I don't know how far we'll get here, but just so I work with Maurice Cotterell, he wrote Tutankhamun Prophecies, in which he insisted that the Viracocha Quetzalcoatl science, solar physics of Central America was so identical to the Tutankhamun solar physics that it was proof that the Tutankhamun incarnation was the Quetzalcoatl Viracocha incarnation, which is exactly what Dalia is now saying. And one of the important series from that book was when they identified the changing pattern of solar flare emissions at one period in history, this is Quetzalcoatl's feather, by the way. This is actually the periodicity of the solar flares in time, which create a weft and a wharf and a woof. And at one point, the solar flare geometries prevented women from ovulating. And Cotterell explains very much in detail, this is Quetzalcoatl, who now we know is Thoth, actually apologizing for why they had to leave, because the solar physics told them this is a time when women cannot ovulate. And this pattern, the solar flares, is also DNA. This is the plasma physics of the 9. I did this presentation with Elaine and Danan on the Los Alamos Plasma Physics Group map of the model of 9 self-organizing toroids, which become the living plasma body, not just of humans and your 9 chakras, but also what's called the 9, the returning ancestral wise ones, which is obviously Thoth is part of the leader of that group. So this is all, it's all plasma physics. And we've been through that. And this stick man identified that the point of view from which the shaman was seeing the plasma of the earth body, where he drew the picture, the height of the dots by the belly here, indicated the latitude from which the shaman was seeing the living plasma body of earth. So all these shaman carvings are literally plasma physics. And so these are the magnetic lines actually depicted, measured in Australia. We now know the ancestors, what they call dreaming track song line, ancestor memory, was literally a map of magnetic lines, which we now know is a longitudinal array, and that's you had to inhabit to be ancestral memory. So we're not going to go into all that history of Thoth here, but just to say we have this graphic where the one family, Anunnaki family here, Enki here, became named in all the ancient traditions. So in Sumeria, we now know the Sumerian alphabet is Anak. The Enki, Merk, it was called Merku. In Egypt, it was called Atun or Ptah. In Greece, it was called Poseidon. In Babylon, it was called Ea and Zoroaster. In Africa, it was called Atum or Kilimanjaro. In Christian, it's called Baal or Beelzebub. In Norse, it was Loki. In American, it was Atum, and later Tom in Puhark. In the Aboriginal, it was fish god. And in Star Wars, it's Luke Skywalker. So this is about the Aboriginal song lines. We're not going to do all of this here, but I just wanted to get to these. And this is the Hypogeum, which is the dolichocephalic lineage in Malta, which we now know is Thoth. And they use the specific frequencies to induce trance there. And we know what the frequencies were. This is the cascade, fractal in time. We're not going to go through all these. And this is the pent hepta 5 and 7 array on the Earth grid, and from the Grail legends at Rennes-le-Château. So just we're going to finish with the repair of the fabric of the time from the Buehler Templars, identifying the Thoth agenda in history. This is what's called the Rochelle grid. The Rochelle grid is literally a Valentine. And you put that on the land and it holds the fabric of time together. And there's an elaborate explanation of how the Templars spent hundreds of years lining up these magnetic sites in Europe in order to create this living plasma being. That's a point. Famously, the connection to Malta here, connection to France, Orkney Islands, all the stories. You should see at the goldenmean.info/Buehler. This was they call the fabric of time, that actually time is a name for relative spin rate, and the fabric of time obviously is the fractal embedding of spin rates. That's called the fabric of time. Otherwise, time is fractionated. So this was called the Ashtara grid. And this, for example, the Michael line through UK, if you extend that planet-wide, it passes through the Azores at St. Michael's Island, at the place where the Ark of the Covenant was found, in that cave in the Azores, which is where who's it died? That famous explorer. Thank you. Jacques Cousteau's son died right there on St. Michael's Island when they discovered the Michael. And the point there is that when the Templars found the Ark of the Covenant in that cave, only accessible from water, exactly on the Michael line, it was proof that the Ark of the Covenant wouldn't work unless it was on those magnetic lines, because it needed to be magnetically longitudinal, centripetal, implosive in order to do its primary task, which was non-destructive containment of radioactivity. So I'm not going to do all these graphics here of the Templar agenda, the repair of the fabric of time, but just to say that my 20 years of work with William Buehler on this Earth grid dynamic has suddenly come into new light when we see what Thoth is doing now to repair the fabric of time, this grid and this inhabiting array. I'm going to stop this screen share here. And I think we've lost Dalia, unfortunately. I think the grid in Egypt needs a repair of the fabric of time, actually. No, but the point being, this is the point of the conversation that we're supposed to discuss the parallel where Thoth directly takes Dalia out into the field and heals a schoolyard where the Steiner School kids are literally having their souls eaten by the parasitic frequency emanations from this circle of nasty 5G towers around and all this horrible electrosmog with embedding all these nasty parasites. And Thoth is there saving the kids from this torn grid of electrosmog. And then the other scene, which was to be described at this part in our video, is Thoth taking Dalia into this intense burial ground, graveyard, cemetery in Berlin, literally at the Berlin Wall. I mean, the center of the tragedy, and talk about the fabric of ancestor memories being ripped asunder. And Thoth takes her into this graveyard, and they collect all these souls, which are basically dizzy because they have no way out. They cannot implode, so they can't embed and distribute in that array called ancestor memory because there isn't critical mass of centripetal force. How do you save ghosts? We even know Therify is very helpful for that, for example. So suddenly here are hundreds of dizzy ghosts being reassembled, and Thoth has the power in his aura to do that. And you know that in the resurrection, on the last day, the ancestors will rise from the dead. We now know, electrical engineers now know what that means. As our friend Professor Ralph teaches, when you find too many basically dizzy dead ghosts in the land, it radically affects not just ancestor memory and lucid dreaming, but fertility and agricultural function, because the plasma of the land cannot peacefully embed and become centripetal. So releasing the dead ghosts of ancestors, this is major critical work to save, for redemption, literally, of the souls of Earth. This is, this is not a myth or fairy tales for Bible thumpers. No, this is electrical engineering I'm talking about to release the dead souls. We know why at the time of the rapture, you do not want to be the left behind. And this is about electrical engineering. It's not about personality worship, let me assure you. Anywho, as usual, I have carried on extensively. And it looks like Dalia.Ali cannot come back right now, unfortunately, because nobody repaired the grid of the fabric of time in Egypt, where she is right now. So this is going to be a to be continued. But you can see the story to the Mori of where we were so far is that the Thoth agenda is to teach there is a way through that wormhole, whether you call it, we're going to talk about the blue hole there that Dalia does initiations, or the physics of successful death through a wormhole. This is a path in which to inhabit the longitudinal array, whether you call it the fabric of time, whatever you want to call it. It is the physics of the longitudinal array of ancestor memory, and inhabiting that array coherently, the measurable physics of lucid dreaming, the measurable physics of what you will take electrically when you die. This is physicsofsoul.com. So we say that the lesson about learning the science of the way to get that kind of coherence in your aura, the Ba from the Ka, the Kesjan body, the rainbow light body, these are names for a kind of electrical coherence, which is the only definition of soul and immortality. And it's very teachable, it's very physical, it's very measurable. And the frequency signature is, by the way, by equation, clockfire.com. So I'm delighted that Dalia brings to this conversation this personal experience of these connections. And this story is to be continued, hopefully. And the next time, Dalia will be with us again. In the meantime, thank you very much. Blessings. Go with bliss.